Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Nordic Market News, where we summarize this week's most important market news in the Nordic countries. We are off to a fairly good start of the second half year, and we have small but decisive increases in the major stock indices of the Nordic countries. And what is behind this? The first week of the month always publishes the PMI, the Purchase Managers Indices. And the overall impression of this was optimism, which was signalized in fairly high numbers there. Also, we had some production data from the Swedish industry from the National Statistics Agency, and it was up 2.2% in May, and that was twice as much as expected. Other than that, we had a central bank decision from Sweden, and today we're awaiting the non-farm payrolls, the job market data from the USA later this afternoon. And let's take a look at the indices more in detail. In Sweden, we're up 1% for the week, which makes Sweden this week's winner among the Nordic countries. Whereas Norway is a tad weaker since the oil price, of which the Norwegian Stock Exchange is sort of a derivative, has ceased its upward streak, which was very long. It was 10 days in a row with increases, and now it's 3 days in a row with decreases. So the Norwegian major index is up just 0.2% this week. In the Nordic 40 index, which comprises the major 40 companies in the Nordic countries, Pandora is this week's winner. I will go through later why is that. And Carlsberg, another large Danish company, is the loser of the week. I will also talk more about that later. All right, let's enter the section of this program with corporate news, and we start as usual with Sweden. And this week we will not speak so much about H&M. Stefan Persson continues to buy shares there, but there has been no dramatic news this week there. Instead, the drama has been in Ericsson, the telecom company, and what happened? Yes, the chairman since many years, Leif Johansson, announced that he will not stand for re-election next year, and this is speculated to be a consequence of the new main owner, Cevian, the activist investor, which is now the major owner of Ericsson, at least according to Capital. Vote-wise, they are not there. The biggest owner investor is much larger. Nevertheless, Leif Johansson, he had a conflict with Cevian's frontman, Christer Gardell, when he was a CEO, when Leif was CEO of Volvo. And now he will not stand for re-election. The share rose 2% following this, so the market had a positive reaction. Today, Friday, Ericsson communicated that two current and 4 former employees are indicted in Greece following a radar deal in 1999, and that unit of Ericsson is now divested to Saab. I don't know if the 4 former employees that are indicted are currently employed by Saab. Remains to be seen. More further in Sweden, we had this central bank's decision that I mentioned, and the central bank announced just as expected that they will leave the interest rate on minus 0.5%. And they reported, quote, economic activity is strong and inflation is approaching 2%, end of quote. And as they said in April, the next interest rate hike is expected by mid-2018. And what was different than before is that it's less likely now that they will cut the interest rate further. And a consequence on the stock market on this is that Swedbank, which is, they have a lot of mortgage, they are the winner of the OMXS 30 this week with a hike of 3 to 4%. All right, let's proceed to Denmark, where, as said, Pandora, the jeweler, is this week's winner. Today they announced that they will extend the partnership they have since a few years with Disney in North America and Asia Pacific. They are extending that partnership to Europe, Africa and the Middle East, and the partnership revolves around selling jewelry with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse decorations. So the Pandora stock is up 9% for the week. Carlsberg, the loser of the week in Denmark and also in the Nordic countries overall. They suffered a downgrade from Barclays. They downgraded their recommendation for Carlsberg to underweight from equal weight, and I have not seen the reasons why. Further in Denmark, Denmark evaluates to join the European Banking Union, and they say that Copenhagen is becoming increasingly popular among the financial market participants. And as an example of that, Nordea is evaluating to move their headquarters from their current site here in Stockholm to either Helsinki or Copenhagen. Speaking of Helsinki, the economy, the business environment is getting increasingly better there, and Hypo, a financial institution, they double their annual GDP growth forecast to 3% for this year, and the reasons they posted is that the global demand is increasing and benefiting the Finnish, to a large extent, industry-based business environment. Finland has an increasing trade with Russia, and the government policies to increase competitiveness is also benefiting the Finnish industry. Further, there are signs of increasing domestic consumption in Finland and beneficial investments. However, they said that Hypo growth will fall to sub 2%, less than 2%, following shrinking labor force and weak productivity improvements in later years. That is 2019 going forward. Finally, in Norway, the major news perhaps this week there was that Norwegian Airlines, they published their traffic figures for June yesterday. And along with that, Frode Foss, the CFO since 15 years, since the company was founded, he announced that he will resign. And he gave no particular reason for that, except that it's time to do something else. And the market, obviously, they reacted negatively to this because the share lost around 8% following that news. All right, those were some of the financial market news for the week in the Nordic countries. Thank you for watching, and welcome back next week. Bye.